INEOS reportedly not wanting to continue with Erik ten Hag. A shortlist for a new striker has been written up with 3 main targets included. These are some of the stories we will be discussing on this evening's live show. But before we get into that, please smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 200 likes on this evening's show. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe to the channel. Get involved. We're live every single day in the morning, in the evening, and if anything breaks during the day, I do go live as well. So make sure you get involved here on Daily Red Devil. So let's start the show off by talking about the striker. And I've got a question for you. I want you to let me know in the comment section, what striker should Manchester United sign this summer? I'll give you a little bit of an update on where everything is at. So Benjamin Sesko was a player Man United were actively trying to sign. He has just announced that he will be staying at Red Bull Leipzig. He's just signed a new contract. So Benjamin Sesko will not be joining Manchester United this summer. Guirassy is apparently in talks with Borussia Dortmund and Bayern Munich, and it looks likely that he'll end up moving to one of those two clubs. So Guirassy to Manchester United, I would say, is very, very unlikely to happen. So bear that in mind when you give your answers in the comment section. Guirassy and Sesko will not be coming to Manchester United. Now, I'll run you through the latest news on who the players are that we've been linked to today, because some really, really solid reports have come out. But in the meantime, get in the comment section and let me know what striker Manchester United should sign this summer. And let's take you back to the beginning, right? We've had confirmation from multiple different journalists that Manchester United's priority signings this summer are a striker, a central defensive midfielder, and a centre-back. So those are the 3 players we will 100% sign this summer. The reason for that is obviously Anthony Martial was our second striker last season. Obviously didn't play because he was injured, but he has now left. His contract's expired. He is no longer a Manchester United player. So as it stands, the only striker or out-and-out striker is Rasmus Højlund. Obviously, Marcus Rashford can play as a striker, but I don't think he's very effective there. And he's even said he doesn't like playing as a striker. So I wouldn't really include Marcus Rashford as a striker. He's a wide player, isn't he? And obviously, he's had a troubled season, let's say. So I'm not going to include Marcus Rashford as a striker. He's a left winger or a right winger. But that then points us to the obvious, that we desperately need a striker. You know, Rasmus Højlund last year had an incredible first season, I think, considering his age, considering the pressure. And I think he did what I was expected of him, you know. I think I said I wanted 15 goals from Rasmus Højlund, and he did that. So fair play to Rasmus Højlund. So, but Manchester United have always had 2 or 3 good strikers competing with each other. And we can't go into another season with just Rasmus Højlund. We just can't. What happens if he gets injured? What do we do then? So Man United will sign a striker. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And we've had multiple different journalists today writing various stories confirming the 3 players that apparently Manchester United are actively scouting and want to try and sign. So we've got Ivan Toney from Brentford, apparently available for about £50 million. We've got Jonathan David from Lille, also worth about £50 million. And then you've got Joshua Zirkzee, who plays for Bologna in the Serie A, available for a £34 million release clause. So those are the 3 players that Manchester United are effectively going to choose from. There is also some reports today saying that apparently Man United are interested in Brian Broby, another player that Erik ten Hag is familiar with, 22 years of age, plays for, can you guess, Ajax? Can you guess his nationality? Dutch. We're always going to be linked to the Dutch players, but in all fairness, Brian Broby had a really good season last year in the Netherlands. He got 18 goals and 10 assists in 30 matches for Ajax, which is pretty good, I think. You know, that's a goal or an assist every game, pretty much. He got 2 goals in the Europa League as well, and yeah, he had a good season. But do I want to see Brian Broby come to Man United? Not really. I think he's an interesting option, but I think he's only really an option we'll go for if Erik ten Hag is still the manager, and you can see where that link has come. But at the same time, if INEOS are saying that Erik ten Hag isn't going to have a say on transfers and stuff, then why would they let him sign Brian Broby? It doesn't really make sense to me. So I think we can put Brian Broby to one side because, yeah, I think it's unlikely that we'll go for him, to be honest. So let's go through the 3 options that are most likely going to be of interest to Manchester United. And as I said, I want you to let me know in the comment section which player you would like Manchester United to sign as the new striker. So for me personally, I would go with Joshua Zirkzee. I think he's the best option out of the three available players. I think Ivan Toney is a very, very good footballer, but he is 28 years of age. He's going to cost £50 million. He's going to want big wages, and he's going to want reassurances that he's going to be playing every single week, which for me really limits then Rasmus Højlund's game time. Whereas Joshua Zirkzee could come in. I think he could play, not as a backup, but they could kind of split the job 50-50, couldn't they? And when you look at his stats from last season, he actually scored more goals last season in Serie A than what Rasmus Højlund did. So I'm not saying I don't like Rasmus Højlund. I'm just saying that, at this point in his career, he's a little bit older than Rasmus Højlund, to be fair, but he has done well in the Serie A. And being honest, he was playing for a lesser team. Like, Bologna, historically, are not as good a team as Atalanta. Obviously, Atalanta just won the Europa League, didn't they? But yeah, so I would really, really like to see Joshua Zirkzee come to Manchester United. And the thing I really like about him is that he's still very young. He's fast. But he's available for only £34 million, which I think is an absolute bargain in the current market. I really, really do. When you think that we paid, I think, 65, 70 million pounds for Rasmus Højlund, and we could get somebody who's got more goals and assists in the same league last season for half the price. Now, the headline coming out from Sky Sports this evening is this: Manchester United make Bologna striker Joshua Zirkzee their top transfer target for this summer. So this is coming out from Sky Sports. It's all over their kind of breaking news section. He is the primary target. He has a release clause of £34 million. And Manchester United are apparently doing their due diligence, speaking to the agent ahead of the transfer window opening on Friday. Now, if Manchester United want to show us their ruthlessness in the market, right, they need to go and trigger his release clause on Friday. Or even trigger the release clause now. Because there are other clubs who want Joshua Zirkzee. Arsenal want him. AC Milan want him. There are so many clubs out there who are desperate for a striker. Obviously, Chelsea need a new striker. So if we don't go and get him now, he'll go to somebody else. He'll probably do well, and we'll be sat here scratching our heads. And I think Joshua Zirkzee fits the profile of what INEOS are looking for. He's still young. He's available for a very good price. And there's, if he comes in and does well, Joshua Zirkzee's price could double. If we get him for 34 million and he comes in and gets, 20 goals in the Premier League, he could easily then be a £70 million striker. Do you know what I mean? And that's something that Man United haven't been able to do in a long time. A lot of players that we bring in, their price goes down because we usually overpay and then they underperform. And it's just the same every single time. We overpay, they come, they underperform, and then we're sat here saying we can't get rid of them. They're on stupid money. No one wants to buy them. And that's where we are every single time. So I think Joshua Zirkzee for me is the perfect option. He really, really is. And I think he would be an absolutely incredible asset for Manchester United. And, if you look at it from an Erik ten Hag's perspective as well, if Erik ten Hag is to remain as the Man United manager, which we'll talk about in a minute, then he also fits into that mould. He's obviously Dutch. He's somebody that Erik ten Hag is aware of, somebody that Erik ten Hag knows. So, yeah, I think when you look at it overall, it makes complete sense on every single level. Even if Erik ten Hag is sacked, 34 million for Joshua Zirkzee, he's going to be a good player regardless. But if Erik ten Hag doesn't get sacked, it's a Dutch player, someone he knows, someone who's obviously, I think they worked together at Bayern Munich, didn't they, in the youth team setup. So they have a history together. I don't know whether he's got the same agency as let's have a look. No, I don't think he does. I thought he might have the same agent as Erik ten Hag, but I don't think he does. I think he's got a different agent. Yeah, he has a different agent, so that's fine. It's not the same agency. Let's have a look whose agency he is with. Yeah, it's a different agency, so that's fine. But yeah, let me know in the comment section, who would you like to be the new striker? And everyone who's just joined the video, could you do me a little favour and smash a like? Let's try and go for 200 likes on this evening's show. We've got over 300 people watching already. So if everybody who's watching the video likes the video, we will hit the 200 targets. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe as well. We are very close to 23,200. So if this is your first time watching, please do go and subscribe and make sure to hit a like on the video. I'm just going to have a sip of my water. And interestingly enough, we have a live poll going. And I asked you the question, who would you like to be the new striker? I gave you 3 options, Joshua Zirkzee, Ivan Toney and Jonathan David. 43% of you want Joshua Zirkzee, 38% of you say Ivan Toney, and 7% of you say Jonathan David. And I would probably agree with that, to be honest. I think if Ivan Toney was 22, 23, he'd be a quality signing. But at the age of 28, I just don't think he's going to be the correct decision. He's a lot more money than Zirkzee, and I think he's going to massively halter Rasmus Højlund's development, whereas I could see Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee almost feeding off each other, you know, like they're both young, they're both still developing, they're both not like the finished product yet, both encouraging each other without having that ego of somebody who comes in expecting to play every single game like Ivan Toney would. So yeah, I would go with Zirkzee. I think that would be a really, really good signing. Obviously, it's disappointing that that Benjamin Sesko is going to stay at Red Bull Leipzig, because I think, again, he would have been a quality signing. But it doesn't mean that we can't try and sign him in the future. But yeah, so that's where we are at with the striker. It does look like Man United primary target, that's the words that are being used, is Joshua Zirkzee. So if he's their primary target, they should go and sign him. The deal should be easy. There's a release clause. He's obviously going to want to come to Manchester United, isn't he? Like, he's probably earning half of what Man United will pay him, realistically, you know? Let's have a quick look. So Joshua Zirkzee at the moment is earning... where are we? Just having a look at his wages. So Joshua Zirkzee currently earns about £19,000 a week in Italy. I think Rasmus Højlund's on about 60 grand a week. So literally, if we were to give Joshua Zirkzee the same wage as Rasmus Højlund, which is about 60k a week, which I think is a perfectly fair wage, when you consider that Anthony Martial was on 250k a week and never played, you bring him in, you give him 3 times his current wage, so you give him 60k a week, which is 190k a week less than what Martial was on. I think it's win-win. I see no issue to not doing this deal. I mean, if you even look at it over a long period of time, right? 60k a week is about roughly about £3 million a year, right? Whereas if you look at what Anthony Martial was earning, he was on about £15 million a year. So if you look at it like that, right? £15 million a year moved from the wage bill by getting rid of Anthony Martial. So 15 million's in the bank. Joshua Zirkzee is going to cost you 34 million plus 3 million for the first season in wages. So that's 37 million. So technically, if you break it all down, letting Anthony Martial go, removing the 15 million, and then going and buying Zirkzee for 34 million and giving him 3 million a season is only 25 million more than what you were paying Martial. Does that make sense? It's a little bit confusing to get your head around, but like you have to look at it. You have to look at it as the bigger picture. We've let one striker go who was on ridiculous wages. We're bringing a younger profile who is available, will be on, what would it be? What was it? About a fifth of the wages Martial is. So for me, it's a no-brainer. But let me know what you guys think. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat this evening. Josh says, who do you think would be happy with sitting on the bench and being a backup, either Højlund or Zirkzee, if we sign him? To be honest with you, mate, I think that it would be like a rotation between the two of them. I don't think one of them would suddenly become a bench player. I think they genuinely would rotate. You know, a player would come on in the 60th minute. And I think, if anything, it would actually encourage the other one to perform. Whereas at the moment, Rasmus Højlund is trying and trying and trying and trying. But when he needs a break, there's not really anybody to take his place. You know, it's been Bruno Fernandes playing as a false nine. That was the formation we played in the FA Cup final, wasn't it? Bruno was the false nine. So, I mean, it did work, to be fair, with Bruno as the false nine. I did like that. But, I mean, that's another option, though, isn't it? Maybe next season, Bruno plays as a false nine and Mason Mount plays as the number 10 in Bruno's position. Maybe that's how they utilise Mason Mount. you know? Put Bruno as the false nine. We just won an FA Cup by doing that. And then have Mason Mount play as the centre attacking midfielder. It's something we've got to consider, because I don't see how Mason Mount's going to ever get any game time. Bruno Fernandes starts every single game as the central attacking midfielder, right? Mason Mount is a central attacking midfielder. What was the point in signing him if Bruno's going to play every single game? You know, it doesn't really make any sense. Malk says, why didn't Bayern keep Zirkzee then? Is he really that good? The thing is, right, like, it's easy to say, oh, blah, 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 didn't keep him, etc. There's lots of instances where players aren't going to get game time, you know, because they're too young. Bayern Munich have always had, like, one world-class striker, haven't they? They had Lewandowski for God knows how long. They then had, now they've got Harry Kane. Like, Joshua Zirkzee's not going to play ahead of Harry Kane. He was never going to play ahead of Lewandowski, whereas Joshua Zirkzee will get game time if Rasmus Højlund's our only striker, you know? Rasmus Højlund isn't the finished article. He's, 20, 21? Harry Kane's in his 30s and gets 30, 40 goals every season for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? So, yeah, I mean, the thing is as well, you've got to remember, guys, is Joshua Zirkzee was in Bayern's youth academy. You know, he's been there for a very, very long time. He's been there since 2017. So, like, I don't think they... Yeah, I'm just having a look here. So, Bayern Munich paid 150,000 euros for him. And then they sold him for 8.5 million. So they made good money on him. And I think there's a sell-on clause as well. I think they'll get some of the money if they sell him this summer. So, you know, at the end of the day, football's business. They brought him in for a really tiny amount of money. They developed him, they sold him, and now they're going to make money out of it. So, yeah. Somebody says, what's your views on Youssouf Fofana? Yeah, I think Fofana would be a really interesting option. I'll be honest with you. The links to Fofana have gone quite quiet. Obviously, there's the French league INEOS links to him. But, yeah, I would love to see Youssouf Fofana at Manchester United. I think he'd be a really, really good signing. I think, you know, him and or João Neves, or him and or Amrabat would be really, really interesting. But we'll wait and see what happens with that one. I think at the moment we've got to really focus on the midfielder. On the striker and the centre-back. Big ups to Fred, who's just gifted 5 memberships to the Daily Red Devil Members Club. Thank you for all of your support, my friend. I hope you're doing well. If you have just been gifted a membership by Fred, make sure you say thank you in the chat. Make sure you show your appreciation. Absolute legend. Thank you for all your support, my friend. Caesar says, Kieran, what are your thoughts on letting Omari Forson leave for free? I'll be honest with you, mate, right? I think letting Omari Forson leave was the correct decision. I do. He apparently wanted ridiculously high wages at Manchester United. From what I saw of Omari Forson, maybe he could be a player in the future, but he's just about to turn 20. He clearly wasn't going to get any game time. You know, we've got so many other players ahead of him, Ahmad, Pellistri, and they don't get any game time. So I think letting Omari Forson go was the correct decision. And let's be honest, right? The clubs who were looking at him were Sunderland in the Championship, Middlesbrough in the Championship, and the club he's gone to is some team at the bottom of Serie A who I've never heard of. So, you know, it's not like Real Madrid and PSG and Bayern Munich were all circling for Omari Forson's signature. They were all Championship sides and, you know, the bottom of the Serie A side. So I wish him all the best. I'm not upset about it whatsoever. I think we really, really need to clear players out, and that's got to include youth players. We've got to be ruthless. We've got to be brutal. You know, letting people like Brandon Williams go, that's the correct decision. Letting people like, who else have we let go? Anthony Martial go, it's the correct decision. I think letting Rafael Varane go, now that the dust has settled, was the correct decision. You know, we can't be paying Rafael Varane 350k a week to only be available for 50% of the time. We can't be paying Rafael Varane to be 350k a week to be in the Europa League. Like, I think the decisions so far have been the right ones. It's easy for us to criticise INEOS. I think the handling of the manager has been terrible. But I think to this point, the players that they've got rid of, I'm happy with. And I don't disagree with them whatsoever at this point. But obviously things can change, you know. Next thing you know, they'll be giving Scott McTominay a 10-year contract or something, you know, and what would happen then? But let me know what you guys think. Are you happy with what INEOS have done so far in relation to the transfer market? Right, let's move on to Erik ten Hag then quickly, because there's lots and lots of stories coming out this evening. And I don't like to say I told you so because I don't know. But it is quite nice, isn't it, when you get proved right? And the headline this evening, so this is coming out from Sam Pilger, who reports for The Athletic and Forbes magazine. So a good journalist, very close to Manchester United. He is reporting that INEOS are not keen on keeping Erik ten Hag for another season. They feel like it is a gamble to keep Erik ten Hag. But then he says they are also stuck because none of the managers that they have spoken to have impressed them. So effectively, as I said earlier on the show, on a previous video, they don't want to keep Erik ten Hag, so they've gone out and looked for a new manager, but now they don't like any of the other managers either. So they're effectively going to be forced to keep Erik ten Hag because they don't have any other option. But I just feel like unless they come out and publicly back him, unless they come out and say, we're going to give him, even if it's a 1-year contract extension, just something, and they tell us what the plan is. They say, Erik ten Hag's roles are going to change. He's going to become the head coach. We're going to be more involved in the transfers. But they're not going to do that, I don't think. I think they're just going to wait. They're going to wait until a bad run of form, a couple of defeats, and then I reckon they'll sack him, to be honest. That's my opinion on it. So they're not giving him a vote of confidence, whatsoever. It is frustrating. It's also frustrating that there isn't an obvious replacement out there, being completely honest, Like, if they had, a Carlo Ancelotti or a Zinedine Zidane or, someone like a Jurgen Klopp who was desperate for the job, then it would have made the decision a bit more easy, But this is what we've been saying for weeks. We've been saying for absolutely weeks that none of the managers are available. None of the managers are available are better than Ten Hag. So why are they looking at changing him? That was been the thing we've been talking about for like the last month. And people are obviously frustrated about it now, which is completely fair. I get it. The transfer window opens on Friday, okay? And we don't know who our manager's going to be. We don't have a director of football. We don't have a CEO yet because Omar Barada can't start. The only person we have is Jason Wilcox, who's a technical director. That's it. And we have an angry manager who's been effectively left out in the cold after winning a major trophy against the best team in the world, Man City. And it's not good. It's not good handling. And I think it's really, really poor, to be completely honest with you. The story goes on to say that INEOS are not impressed with Erik ten Hag, and they are not particularly impressed with any of the potential replacements. It says if Manchester United had lost the FA Cup, Ten Hag would have been sacked. So it's just literally ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous, to be completely honest with you. That story that came out on the eve of the FA Cup saying that he was going to be sacked is apparently true. But because he won the FA Cup, they then didn't know what to do. So it doesn't tell me that they know what they're doing, INEOS, at the moment, being completely honest. It doesn't tell me that they're competent, because every single football fan, whether you're a Man United fan or not, is looking at Manchester United, scratching their head, saying, what the hell are they doing? They've got a manager who statistically is more successful than any other manager in England at the moment, apart from Pep Guardiola. Let that sink in for a minute. Erik ten Hag is currently the second most successful manager currently in a job in the Premier League by way of trophies. He's won more than Arteta. Arteta's been there for 5 years. He's won, obviously, Ange Postecoglou's won nothing. Who else is there? Unai Emery's won nothing. Like, we have the second most successful manager at our club, and we're considering sacking him for someone like Thomas Frank, who finishes in the bottom half of the table with Brentford, or someone like Roberto De Zerbi, who might become the next best manager. But let's be honest, De Zerbi didn't have a very good season last year. I know the resources are less, I know the players are worse, whatever, but still, like, it's not like you're going from Erik ten Hag to Pep Guardiola. It's not like you're going from Erik ten Hag to Sir Alex Ferguson, or, you know what I mean? Like, you're going from Erik ten Hag to Thomas Frank, or even best case scenario, Thomas Tuchel, who already had loads of question marks, was sacked by Chelsea, sacked by Bayern Munich, fell out with the PSG board. Like, it's just embarrassing. Oh, right. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Let's have a look. Jarvis says it's impossible to rate INEOS so far. We have no idea what they're working on. It feels like most journalists are waffling and fumbling in the dark. I think we can judge them. Of course we can, because they have made decisions to this point. some of which have been good, some of which have been bad. To say it's impossible to judge INEOS so far, I don't think that's completely fair. INEOS have come in, they haven't cleared the debt. Are we not able to judge them on that? The other interested party, I mean, there's no point going over the takeover again, but INEOS have the available money. Jim Ratcliffe is a multi-billionaire. I mean, what's Jim Ratcliffe's net worth? Let's have a look. Jim Ratcliffe's net worth is 16 billion. INEOS's net worth is... So Jim Ratcliffe's personal value is 16 billion. His company is valued at 30 billion. I think Manchester United's debt is about 800 million. So Jim Ratcliffe could have come in, INEOS could have come in and said, the first thing we're going to do is clear the debt. They had the money to do that. They could have done that. They haven't done that. And they've only invested, I think, about 200 million was their pledge. So we can judge them on that. We can rate them on that, can't we? They've gone after a director of football who was in a rival, Newcastle, in the richest club in the world, in a contract. And they've said that this is our only target. This is the only person we want. We don't want anybody else. And now they're in a legal battle with Newcastle. And it looks like our director of football won't come until next season, as in next year, 2025. So we can judge them on that. Is that what competent football club owners do? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying get rid of them now, but I just think there are things that we can judge them to this point, you know? I mean, what else have they done? I'm trying to think of something they've been done that's good. I mean, get rid of John Murtaugh and Richard Arnold. That was good. What else have they done? But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, most people just judge owners on players they sign, and that's kind of it, you know? But I think we do have to look at the bigger picture here. Yeah. I see what you're saying, Jarvis. You're just talking about the transfer window. I get it. Yeah, I'm not saying that they've not done well in the transfer window. The transfer window hasn't even opened yet. I'm looking at the bigger picture. You know, I'm looking at the whole thing. INEOS as a new owner who are putting the Manchester back in Manchester. We've got the boyhood Manchester United fan, Jim Ratcliffe, coming to save Manchester United. But yet what we've seen of it so far has been not paying off the debt, trying to get a director of football who effectively wasn't available and now are in a mess, leaving your manager out to dry without a replacement available, and going into a transfer window without a new manager. Like, yeah. Digital Sports Update says, Kieran, INEOS is not a step forward for me. They're just a step back. Yeah, I get it. Like, football is about winning trophies, of course. That's the most important thing. But you also have to look at the overall thing, don't you? The overall project, the overall... And I'll be completely honest with you, right? I think INEOS are relatively unexperienced in running a football club. And I think they'd probably admit that as well. Obviously, they're more experienced than me or you. I'm not trying to say that I could run Manchester United better than INEOS, but I'm just saying, in relation to football, you know, in cycling, they've done well, very well. In selling chemicals and manufacturing chemicals, they've done very well. But in relation to football, they've gone to INEOS and they've actually made them worse. Nice, not INEOS. Nice have finished worse each season, or generally worse. Nice used to get top four and stuff. So I think it is a bit of a learning project for them. And they're trying to bring in people who will be able to help them with this project, i.e. Omar Barada, i.e. Dan Ashworth. But let's be honest, that has backfired massively, I think. Like, we should have had a director of football months ago. INEOS have been here since January. And they put all of their eggs in one basket. They said, we want Dan Ashworth at all costs. I'm being completely honest, right? Dan Ashworth's CV was Brighton and then Newcastle, and that was kind of it. So there are lots of other directors of football out there who have a better CV than Dan Ashworth. It's not like he's the best director of football ever, you know? Like, he isn't. He is relatively new in the director of football world. He worked for the FA, didn't he? For a while before that. So it's not like we've said he's the best in the world. Let's wait for as long as we need to for Dan Ashworth because he's the best. I think there's even question marks around that Dan Ashworth. I think he's going to be good, but I don't think he's, you know... Can anybody sit here and honestly say Dan Ashworth is 100% the best director of football in the world. Like, I mean, let's have a look at the players that Dan Ashworth has his best signing, shall we? Quickly. Again, I'm not, saying INEOS out or anything stupid like that. I'm just saying we can judge what we've seen so far. They've been here since January. They haven't cleared the debt. We don't know what's going on with the manager. They got rid of the top people in the club, John Murtagh, Richard Arnold. Correct decision. Tick in the box for INEOS. Well done for that. But now, when they try and replace them, they've messed it up because Dan Ashworth's not going to be in job until next year, 2025. So who's going to be doing the signings? So Dan Ashworth's best signings ever. This is the man that we're waiting. Apparently, he can't start work until June 2025. And we've been speaking to him since January when INEOS came in. So it will be about 18 months from when he probably agreed to come to when he can actually start. 18 months. And his best signings are Trossard, Lamptey, Caicedo, Mitoma, Cucurella, Anthony Gordon, Sven Botman, Nick Pope, and Livramento. Those are Dan Ashworth's best signings as a director of football in his career. I mean, how many of them would you say are world-class players? I mean, Livramento, squad player for most top clubs. Nick Pope, I think, is a good goalkeeper. Sven Botman, good player. Anthony Gordon, I mean, it's not like he's found somebody from the middle of nowhere and brought them in and developed them. They paid 45 million for him. Cucurella, they sold him for a lot of money, but I don't think he's a particularly good player for Chelsea. Mitoma, I think, is a good signing. Caicedo, obviously, was a brilliant signing. Lamptey, yeah, I think Lamptey's all right. I don't think he's amazing. And Trossard, again, like, not amazing. So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, you can let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section. Obviously, somebody else is saying, didn't Ashworth recommend Southgate? Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing as well, isn't it? I don't want to get into what could be and all the rest of it, because the more we look at Dan Ashworth's plan for Manchester United, I mean, if he wants to bring in Gareth Southgate, then God knows. I don't know what to say about that. But yeah, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you to everyone who's joined me on the show this evening. It's been a really, really good stream. Please do smash a like before you leave. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're new. This has been Daily Red Devil. I will be back at 11 a.m. UK time tomorrow. Have a great evening, everyone. Don't forget to let me know in the comment section, once this video goes live, what striker we should sign. Have a nice evening, everyone. I'll speak to you all tomorrow.